2012 was a difficult year for me. What occurred was I was working at Sprint and they fired me. Still in training, it was like 8 weeks of training, and I didn't have a lot of food. And finally, I found a job doing these political polling. It was right before the 2012 election, and I'm doing political polling. Okay, and what occurred was this place was right next to a marijuana dispensary. So you would go in there. The dispensary is called the Clinic. You'd go in there and you'd be sitting there for. They let you work as many hours as you wanted. You could work there for 14 hours, just making $8 an hour. And one moment you'd be calling for a Republican. It wasn't really polling on a lot of them. It was just like you were trying to convince the person to vote for either a Republican or a Democrat. So you'd be on a Democratic one, and then a minute later they'd switch you to a Republican one. So you'd be saying something negative about Obama, and then about 2 seconds later you'd say, please vote for Obama. You were just taking money from whoever would pay him. And they told me, you're doing very well. And it was really boosting my confidence because I had just been fired. You're doing very well. We want to have the client monitor you. And I thought, wow, I'm good at this. I'm doing very well. And that's around the point that I realized that 90% of my coworkers were living in a halfway house. So there was this one guy, I don't know if his name was Ned or Bob, or he was a lot older than the rest of them. And he looked like the serial killer Edward Kempner. If you can look him up, if you can Google him. He had these, wouldn't call them glasses, more like spectacles, and he looked like he went to prison in 76 and he just froze in time. And as I was saying, he looked a lot less, scary than the rest of them. So one day I'm sitting near them. These guys are like a foot from me. We're in a call center, and one of the guys says, "Hey, Bob, what'd you get locked up for?" And he said, 30 years for murder. He said it in like a sing-song sort of way like that. It was almost more scary. It was like he was saying he wanted to go for ice cream or something. And not to mention these fumes are coming in from the marijuana dispensary next door. And you would really feel, not necessarily high, but like really tired at the end of the day. It would really get to you. And at this point, it was just a medical marijuana dispensary. And there was this one guy, this Mexican guy, this young guy, he was literally bullying me. I was in my 30s and he was bullying me. And what else? Okay, so I would call my wife at the end of the day to come pick me up. And I didn't have a phone, so they let me use the phone at the reception area. And I called her one day. She picked me up, and then we went home, and then I was getting ready to, for the next day. Went to sleep. Around 7 a.m, all these calls start coming in. And they're all males. And my wife's getting angry because it's like she gets 7 or 8 calls. But the weird thing is they're all asking when they should work. And she starts literally yelling at these guys, don't call here. And it's just bizarre. They're asking when it's a wrong number. It's a wrong number. And finally she gets a call from a woman, and the woman starts yelling at her, "How did you get this number? How did you get this number?" And my wife's yelling back at her, "Don't call anymore." And finally I realized that the night before, when I was dialing her, I accidentally programmed her phone number as the contact number for the halfway house. So all these criminals were calling, and it could even maybe the serial killer Edmund Kempner called. It was a very interesting time.